I woke up this morning and for one all too brief, wondrous moment, I thought it'd all been a nightmare, that England was still in the cup. We'd been playing so well until last night. It was a proper messy. Welcome to the Tainted Tavern.
Welcome to the Tainted Tavern. Come sit inside with me.
Thank you for joining me at the Tainted Tavern, and you are more than welcome. Today I'm smoking a Falcon pipe, and there's a reason I'm smoking a Falcon for this video, and that will become clear in a few moments. And in the pipe I'm smoking Presbyterian mixture, which is an interesting tobacco in its own right. It's an English blend of sorts. I say English blends of sorts because there was a lot of controversy over what actual tobaccos were contained in this blend. Now, it's a very famous blend. It's been around since the First World War. It says a classic English tobacco Presbyterian mixture came about during the First World War and has been well regarded ever since. It was Presbyterian mixture dates back to the late 19th century, around the 1890s, except the story has always been that it was blended by Charles Preston and Co. of Edinburgh, who were a Scottish tobacconist, a well-regarded Scottish tobacconist during the period. Now, long-standing tradition around this tobacco has said that this blend was actually commissioned by a Scottish Member of Parliament who wanted a tobacco that he could smoke throughout the long debates in the House of Commons. His request to the tobacconist was for something that wouldn't be overpowering, would not tire the palate, and would not leave a heavy room note, but would remain enjoyable enough to smoke several bowls throughout the day. The resulting blend, which is what became to be known as Presbyterian mixture, was light, elegant, and restrained. Why did it take the name Presbyterian? There are two popular explanations throughout history. The first is that the MP who requested the blend was himself a Presbyterian. But secondly, and probably the most entertaining story, is that the blend reflected the stereotypical Presbyterian values of the day, with its creation, restrained, modest, dignified, free from excess. In other words, the tobacco wasn't loud and flashy. It wasn't an in-your-face aromatic. It was a pipe equivalent of quiet good manners. The recipe has changed hands several times over more than a century, but the philosophy behind the creation of Presbyterian mixture hasn't. It's a mellow blend of Virginia's, Latakia and Turkish tobacco. That perfectly captures the blend's character. Over its long history, it's been manufactured by several companies, including Charles Preston and Co., who were the original Edinburgh tobacconists who brought this into creation. Gallagher produced it for a while, and nowadays it's made by the Scandinavian Tobacco Group. The Member of Parliament story is impossible to prove. There is so much in the history of pipe tobaccos that has almost become folklore. It's stories that have been handed down by word of mouth over the years and never really documented, so it is quite impossible to prove. But Stanley Baldwin is definitely part of the story of Presbyterian mixture. The Reverend John White, who supposedly was the first person to smoke this Presbyterian mixture, introduced it to Stanley Baldwin, who later became Prime Minister. And this was supposedly around the early 1920s, during the period of flappers, gangsters, and pretty decent tobacco. According to this version of the story, Baldwin enjoyed the tobacco so much that he arranged for regular supplies to be sent to him, and he's even credited with suggesting the name Presbyterian mixture. But as I say, it's all based on legend and different tellings of the stories, and the tale has very much evolved over the years. It's become a living thing now, with changes from version to version. So the original version of how this tobacco came to be was that it was blended for a Scottish Member of Parliament. The more recent and better documented versions say that it was originally blended for the Reverend John White and then introduced to Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin. Baldwin became a devoted smoker of it and may have given it his famous name. So, we don't know. That's one of the beauties, I feel, of pipe smoking. When you try and trace the origin of any tobacco, any long-standing tobacco, Three Nuns is a perfect example, but any long-standing tobacco, when you try and trace the origin, it throws up as many questions as you get answers. And that's a beautiful thing, because as I say, within these smoke rings, Thrums are quiet. There are several types of Virginia tobaccos in this blend, as well as some Orientals, that is Turkish. But there was always debate among pipe smokers over whether there was Latakia contained within this blend. I've always thought that there is Latakia. I can taste it, that smoky, distinctive Latakia quality. I can taste that in the tobacco. But it's not Latakia heavy like a lot of Englishes are. So the Latakia is rather there as a backbone, as a hint of smoke, as a hint of campfire, as a hint of barbecue even. But it was never, the actual component tobaccos used in this were never named, and so, you know, it was always an argument. And as I say, some pipe smokers swore blind there were Latakia in you, and others said there is definitely not Latakia in you. Well, the current owners of this brand are the Scandinavian Tobacco Group, and they do list on the back of the tin now what tobaccos are used. So we've got, it calls it a mellow blend of Virginia's, Latakia and Turkish tobaccos with a full body taste. So there we have it, that's that argument settled. Presbyterian mixture does indeed contain Latakia. It's a very, it's a nice blend, and if you are someone who smokes English style pipe tobacco blends, then you will be familiar with this. But it's not overpowering. It is a mellow, on the mellower side of the English expression. Now, the reason I'm smoking a Falcon today is because I wanted to talk about a book I've been reading this week about legendary pipeman Jack Hargreaves, who died sadly in 1994 at I think the age of 82. Now, Jack was a television presenter, a writer, and a countryman. He was very much a countryman first and foremost, and he made these wonderful programs which ran for many years on television, called Out of Town rather. And Jack, from what I've read about him, he never used auto cue, so he could sit there in his shed, and he did quite often episodes of talking. Parts of the shows were filmed in his shed, and Jack would sit there, and they'd give him something like an old tool, maybe an old sickle from the fields, and he could just talk about it for however long was required.
Hello. Well, Mr. Mole, who was my form master at school, was the brother of a bishop, but he was also a chess champion.
It's a style of television now that is far gone, I suppose. But the Out of Town episodes are wonderful to watch now, and you can get many of them on YouTube. There's a lot of them available, and indeed, prior to starting this video today, I've been watching a few of them myself. The book I've been reading is called Jack's Country by Peacock. It's a new edition of the book, which this was originally entitled Jack Hargreaves, A Portrait. I mean, it's a lovely little book, and what I found really useful about it is right at the end of the book, in the appendixes, it gives you a full list of Jack's out-of-town and old country broadcasts throughout the years. So that's handy when you're trying to track down particular episodes. But Jack was as I say, he was a pipeman of great distinction, and he did actually won the Pipeman of the Year award.
A luncheon at the Savoy Hotel to select the Pipeman of the Year from some of Britain's best-known pipe-smoking celebrities. And the winner, Jack Hargreaves, television's countryside expert, who received a silver briar pipe trophy engraved with the names of past winners. Another reward for his success, a presentation set of pipes, enough to keep him going for his year of office.
But also, curious to watch some of these old clips these days is Jack also was one of the co-presenters on a children's television program which was broadcast on the independent television program, and it was kind of the independent television's answer to the BBC's Blue Peter. It was called How. And the presenters would get questions sent in by viewers. How does this work? How does that work? And the presenters would answer the questions, entertainingly so. But what's really striking to watch old episodes today, and you'll find some clips on YouTube, Jack Hargreaves is sitting there on the program, presenting a children's TV program with a pipe sticking out of his mouth, his beloved Falcon pipe, which hence the reason I'm smoking my Falcon. Jack became fully associated with the Falcon pipe, and why not? I mean, Falcons are, I've mentioned several times on this channel, Falcons are inexpensive, lightweight, comfortable pipes to smoke, and they do provide a really good smoke time after time. Another thing I wanted to bring to your attention this week is I've been drinking a supermarket whiskey from Lidl, and that is Ben Bracken, the Highland whiskey. Now, Ben Bracken is not a real distillery, it's just the name that Lidl owns to bottle a whiskey under the name Ben Bracken, and they do 3 expressions. This is a Highland. They also do an Isla, and they do a Speyside. Now, the way to tell them apart is these come in rather handsome tubes for the price. Blue is Highland. A green tube would be the Isla, the heavily peated, which is my favourite because I tend to favour peated whiskies. And red tube would be the Speyside. But the way this works is the whiskey sourced from some distillery, which is unknown, it's never revealed, and then it's bottled for Lidl's by the Clydesdale Scotch Whisky Company, Glasgow, G25RG. Now, this company is linked to White and Mackay, which leads a lot of people to suspect that the whiskies contained in you come from one of White and Mackay's operations, such as Glenglasloch or Fetacan or even Dalmo, though I doubt very much if there's any Dalmo in you. But my point of bringing up this whiskey was £17.95 a bottle for 70 cl. It's a single malt. As I say, we don't know actually where it comes from. My educated guess, I would say Fetacane, simply because I think they might have used Glenglasloch at one time, but it did used to be owned by White and Mackay. White and Mackay don't own it anymore. I think it's owned by an American company now, Brown and Company, and they've spent a lot of money, pushed a lot of money into relaunching Glenglasloch whiskey, so I don't think they're going to supply any malts for a budget supermarket blend. So I would say the educated guess is now that this is Fetacane. But my point is, £17.95 a bottle. It is a single malt, as I say. I believe it's Fetacane, and it's delicious. On the nose, you get that honey, sweetness. And on the palate, it tastes honey, fruity, creamy. It's a very, very good single malt. And I've been a lot lately experimenting with cheaper whiskies, with supermarket owned branded whiskies, because I was a snob about this at one time. I would never buy a supermarket branded whiskey. I thought I just decided by snobbery, basically, no other reason. I just decided it's got to be rubbish, it's got to be the dregs, the worst of the worst. But it was a friend of mine who kept on to me about the Ben Bracken little whiskey, but the Isla expression, the green one, because he knew I like peated whiskies, and he says to me, you will enjoy it, and I'm going, oh, no. Anyway, I bought a bottle. This is several years back now, and I've regularly got a bottle of Ben Bracken Isla in my whiskey cabinet. So it just shows that snobbery is, well, you're just denying yourself a possible pleasure, aren't you, for no rational reason, really. Because there's no reason why this stuff in this bottle can't be equal to another single malt which is sitting on a shelf next to it for 2 or 3 times the price. I mean, it's also possible this could be a little better than certain whiskies. Now, I'm sure Jack Hargreaves used to have problems keeping his pipe alight when he talked.
I know you've had years and years of experience of pipe smoking. One thing which baffles me is how do you manage to keep the pipe in your mouth and speak at the same time? What's the secret?
Well, I don't know, I've got it on. The fact of the matter is, it takes a long time to learn to smoke a pipe. But I'm a man who's a real pipe smoker. He never has to think about it. It's always...
Yeah, everything that I've talked about here today, the whiskey, the pipe, the Jack Hargreaves book, I believe that they're all tied into this thing of a quiet rebellion. Civilized anarchists is what as pipe smokers are, because we are bucking the trends, we are bucking what society now deems right and proper. So we're bucking it. As I said, the title of this video is within these smoke rings, Thrums, a quiet rebellion. I love that word, Thrums. Whenever I say it, Thrums, I get a vision of a guitar string that has just been plucked and is thrumming away there, resonating out its dying note. Yeah, it's all about doing your own thing. I mean, we enjoy our pipes, we'll smoke our pipes, and we are not going to be misled by the many thousands of YouTube whiskey reviewers out there who will try and convince us that any whiskey that you pay less than £50 a bottle for is no good, that the only real whiskey experience, authentic whiskey experience, is a high-end single malt, an aged whiskey, 10, 20 years, don't get me wrong, aged whiskies are really nice, but there's no reason why you can't fall back, particularly for a dram of an evening, of a cheap, accessible, a 3-year-old Scotch whiskey. It's got that Highland style about it, which is what you'd expect from an Highland whiskey. The honey is very front forward. There's a sweetness to it. There's an oaty, biscuity taste on the finish. The aroma is predominantly a sweet aroma. You don't really get an ethanol kick at all from this, but it's a decent whiskey, and it pairs really well with my Presbyterian mixture, a traditional whiskey, and the pipe tobacco is wonderful. And I would really recommend the Jack Hargreaves book, not only because he was a pipeman, and a pipeman of impeccable taste, but also because watching Jack simply walking around the country, talking about how this fence was built, how that dry stone wall was built, what these ferrets do here, it's a wonderful experience, particularly with today's fast-paced world. You come to the Tainted Tavern for the atmosphere, for the pub chat, and to slow down and live a moment with your pipe, to take part in our quiet rebellion. And Jack Hargreaves is very much part of the philosophy which drives the Tainted Tavern. So anyway, that's it for now. Cheers. Yaki da. Keep your bowl smoky and your glasses filled, whether it's with really expensive stuff or no frills. See you soon.
Please come back soon.